In the still corners of Defuniak Springs, Florida, a small, slow-moving town where everybody knew everyone, a quiet boy named Jerry Michael Shriver began a life that few would have imagined ending in legend. Born on September 24, 1938, Jerry didn't come from money or privilege. His family lived modestly, and their world revolved around discipline, hard work, and community values. He wasn't the kind of kid who caused trouble or craved attention. If anything, he seemed almost invisible, reserved, polite, and constantly observing the world around him. Jerry preferred books to parties, nature walks to loud conversations. There was something steady and serious in his eyes, even as a child, as if he was always preparing himself for something greater than the quiet streets of his hometown. His father had served in World War II, and though Jerry never bragged or made a show of patriotism, the military spirit seemed carved into his bones. By the time he reached his teenage years, he had already set himself apart, not by what he did, but by what he didn't do. He didn't drink, he didn't chase popularity, and he never wasted time on meaningless distractions. His focus was razor sharp, and his life had a rhythm guided by discipline and purpose. After high school, he gave college a try, but it didn't take long for him to realize that lecture halls and textbooks weren't his path. He was searching for something more intense, something that would test the limits of his strength, his will, and his soul. And so, he chose the United States Army. From the first day, Jerry was different. While other recruits joked around or looked for shortcuts, he pushed himself relentlessly. He never complained, never showed off. He trained hard, listened carefully, and learned fast. Every drill, every obstacle, every order, he took them all with quiet determination. It wasn't long before his superiors noticed the fire behind his calm demeanor. He advanced quickly, earning his place among the elite, the special forces, known to the world as the Green Berets. This wasn't just another promotion. Becoming a Green Beret meant proving yourself in ways few others could endure. It meant surviving some of the most grueling physical and psychological tests in the military. It meant mastering skills most people could barely comprehend: survival in the jungle, fluent communication in foreign tongues, expertise in explosives, weapons, and hand-to-hand combat. Jerry didn't just meet the standard, he exceeded it. By the mid-1960s, he was deployed to the front lines of one of the most brutal conflicts in modern history, the Vietnam War. This was no ordinary war. There were no clear battle lines, no safe zones. The jungle swallowed men whole, and enemies seemed to vanish and reappear like phantoms. The Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese army were cunning, ruthless, and always watching. They laid traps, built tunnels, and struck from the shadows. But Jerry Shriver was not like most soldiers. In the heat and chaos of Vietnam, he thrived. While others were unnerved by the constant danger, Jerry seemed to find focus in it. He moved through the jungle like he was born in it, reading the trees, hearing the wind, spotting threats no one else saw. Where fear paralyzed others, Jerry became sharper, more alert, more alive. Vietnam would chew up and spit out countless brave men, but not Jerry, not yet. In a war that made ghosts out of the living, Jerry Shriver was becoming something even more terrifying, a ghost who fought back. The deeper the war pulled him in, the more Jerry Shriver seemed to evolve into something extraordinary. His calm under fire, his discipline, and his ability to disappear into the thickest jungle caught the attention of high command. It was no surprise when he was selected for one of the most secretive and elite units in the entire U.S. military, MACV-SOG, short for Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, Studies and Observations Group. MACV-SOG wasn't the kind of unit people heard about on the evening news. Their operations were classified, their missions often illegal under international law. They didn't patrol cities or guard bases. They were ghost soldiers, slipping behind enemy lines into Laos, Cambodia, and the deepest parts of North Vietnam. Their objective: sabotage supply routes, destroy enemy installations, rescue prisoners, gather intelligence, and eliminate high-value targets. These were suicide missions dressed as assignments. Teams were small, 6 to 12 men, up against hundreds. If they were caught, there would be no rescue. Capture meant torture or death. But Jerry kept signing up, again and again. He didn't just excel, he dominated. In the jungle, Jerry moved like a phantom, blending into the terrain, calculating every step. He led missions with the precision of a machine and the nerve of a man who had already made peace with death. But unlike some cold commanders, Jerry had heart, and his men knew it. He forged a powerful bond with the Montagnards, an indigenous tribal people from Vietnam's Central Highlands. These fighters were fierce, loyal, and deeply mistrustful of outsiders, especially Americans who often treated them with disdain. But Jerry was different. He respected them. He broke bread with them. He learned parts of their language and fought, shoulder to shoulder with them, never from behind. That trust became his greatest strength in the field. When Jerry led, he led from the front. He was always the first to enter enemy territory, the first to hear a snapped twig, the first to spot movement in the trees, and he never gave an order he wouldn't carry out himself. Then came the mission that would transform him from respected leader to legend. It was late 1966, and Jerry's team was deep inside Laos, tracking the hidden roads and supply routes of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, a critical lifeline for the North Vietnamese army. The terrain was dense, hostile, and swarming with enemies. There was no backup, no air support, just silence and danger. Suddenly, everything erupted. The jungle lit up with gunfire and explosions. The team had walked straight into an ambush. They were surrounded, outgunned, and outnumbered. In a situation where most would freeze or retreat, Jerry did the opposite. He charged forward. He opened fire with terrifying precision, spraying bullets and launching grenades with deadly force. The chaos didn't slow him. It seemed to fuel him. His only goal was to buy time for his team to escape. He moved like he had no regard for his own life. In the middle of the firefight, Jerry did the unthinkable. He dragged not one, but two wounded teammates through enemy fire. He was hit himself, bleeding and exhausted, but he didn't stop. He got them to the extraction point, signaled the chopper, and made sure everyone got out alive. When they landed back at base, Jerry was caked in blood, sweat, and dirt. Without a word, he cleaned his weapon, restocked his gear, and got ready for the next mission. That was the day the name Mad Dog was born. It wasn't a name Jerry gave himself. It was whispered by those who had seen him do the impossible. Some said he was fearless. Others said he was crazy. All agreed on one thing. If you were going into hell, you wanted Mad Dog Shriver leading the way. His reputation spread quickly, within the special forces, then across the entire U.S. military presence in Vietnam. Even the enemy started to hear about him. By then, Jerry wasn't just a man. He was a myth in the making. By 1967, Jerry Mad Dog Shriver had become something more than a soldier. He was a ghost story whispered in the jungles of Southeast Asia. His missions were impossible, his survival unbelievable, and his face rarely seen outside his team. In a war of shadows, he was the darkest one. While many troops rotated out or burned out, Jerry kept going. He volunteered for mission after mission, sometimes multiple operations in a single week. His team would be dropped by helicopter deep in enemy-controlled jungle. Their job was to observe, sabotage, and disappear. Failure meant death. Discovery meant a gunfight with no reinforcements. But Jerry made it work. Each mission demanded silence, speed, and nerves of steel. They planted explosives on enemy trails, raided outposts, and intercepted supply lines on the infamous Ho Chi Minh Trail. And somehow, Jerry kept making it out alive, again and again. No wounds could slow him, no ambush could trap him. He seemed to defy death itself. That's when the North Vietnamese began to fear him in earnest. Reports started surfacing of an American who wouldn't die, an American who kept surviving hopeless, encounters appearing where he shouldn't be, and vanishing before anyone could shoot him. They called him the White Ghost, or the Ghost of the Jungle. Some enemy soldiers claimed he couldn't be human, that he walked through bullets, that he never slept, that he killed with his bare hands. Others said they saw him only Once and never again. In the confusion and terror of jungle warfare, rumors spread faster than bullets, and Jerry's legend grew darker. The North Vietnamese eventually placed a bounty on his head, tens of thousands of dollars, dead or alive. But even that wasn't enough. No one could catch him. No one could stop him. Then came the most daring and dangerous operation of his career, a rescue mission deep in Laos. In November 1967, U.S. intelligence uncovered the location of a hidden prisoner of war camp. Inside were captured American soldiers, starving, beaten, and locked in crude bamboo cages. The camp was heavily guarded, surrounded by hundreds of North Vietnamese troops, and buried deep in hostile territory. Most commanders considered it a suicide mission. No support, no second chances. But Jerry volunteered without hesitation. He picked his team, drew up the plan, and led the charge. They flew in at night, landing miles away to avoid detection. Moving silently through the jungle, the team reached the perimeter without alerting the guards. Then Jerry gave the order, and all hell broke loose. Within minutes, they were inside the camp, firing with precision. Jerry tore open cages with his own hands, pulling out the barely breathing prisoners. The air erupted with gunfire. Jerry was hit in the leg, but he refused to stop. He dragged men over his shoulder, barking orders, fighting through pain. His team fought tooth and nail to get everyone out. The jungle lit up with muzzle flashes and screams, but Jerry stayed on his feet. By the time the helicopters arrived to extract them, every single POW had been rescued, and not one man on Jerry's team had been lost. It was a flawless operation in a war where such things didn't happen. He was awarded another Silver Star. But to Jerry, medals didn't matter. He didn't smile in photos. He didn't give interviews. He didn't boast. What mattered to him was that his brothers came home. That mission burned his name into the mythology of the Vietnam War. He wasn't just Mad Dog anymore. He was the ghost the enemy couldn't kill and the leader his men would follow into hell. But the war was still far from over. As 1968 dawned, the war in Vietnam exploded into its bloodiest and most chaotic phase. On January 30th, during the Vietnamese New Year holiday known as Tet, the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong unleashed a massive coordinated assault across South Vietnam. The Tet offensive hit over 100 cities and outposts simultaneously, turning peaceful neighborhoods into battlefields, homes into bunkers, and streets into rivers of blood. The attacks caught American forces off guard. In cities like Hue, Da Nang, and Saigon, U.S. soldiers found themselves fighting room to room, house to house, unsure who was a civilian and who was an enemy. Explosions rocked embassies. Gunfire echoed through sacred temples. Civilians fled in terror as both sides fought for control. In America, the televised carnage shocked the public. Up until then, citizens had been told the U.S. was winning, but the Tet offensive shattered that illusion. Confidence in the war effort crumbled overnight. Protesters filled the streets back home, and trust in the government began to rot. Washington was in chaos. The press demanded answers, but Master Sergeant Jerry Shriver didn't care about any of that. While politicians made speeches and generals debated strategies, Jerry remained focused on a single truth. The mission comes first. He wasn't in Vietnam for politics or glory. He was there because he believed in protecting his men and stopping the enemy by any means necessary. By early 1969, the war had dragged on for years. Many soldiers were broken, exhausted, and desperate to go home, but not Jerry. He was still in the jungle, still taking on the most dangerous assignments, still leading missions no one else wanted. Then came the call that would define his final days. Intelligence revealed the existence of a major North Vietnamese command base, not inside Vietnam, but deep in Cambodia, just across the border. The base was being used to coordinate enemy movements and stage attacks. Destroying it could cripple the enemy's operations. But it was a suicide mission. The base was protected by hundreds of troops. It was deep in hostile territory. Technically, American soldiers weren't even supposed to be operating there. Jerry didn't hesitate. He volunteered to lead the mission himself, as always. He handpicked a team of 12 men, half special forces, half Montagnard fighters who had bled beside him before. These men trusted Jerry with their lives, and they followed him without question. On April 24, 1969, the team boarded helicopters at a forward base in South Vietnam. Their objective: infiltrate Cambodia, locate the enemy base, and call in airstrikes. They were dropped into the dense jungle with nothing but their gear, their rifles, and Jerry's leadership. At first, everything went according to plan. They landed undetected and began moving silently through the jungle, careful with every step. But then, disaster struck. Somehow the enemy spotted them. Maybe a patrol, maybe aerial surveillance. Whatever it was, gunfire erupted without warning. Bullets sprayed from the trees. The jungle exploded with chaos. The small team took cover wherever they could, behind fallen logs, under roots, inside thickets. Radio reports later revealed that several hundred North Vietnamese soldiers had encircled them. The Americans were trapped, outnumbered at least 20 to 1. Through the noise and terror, Jerry was seen moving with calm precision. He checked on every man, gave orders, returned fire, and pulled the wounded to safety. He was everywhere at once, relentless and unshaken. But then the worst happened. Radio contact was lost. Static replaced updates. No one knew what was happening on the ground. Backup wasn't an option. Jerry and his team were on their own. In desperation, command ordered airstrikes. Napalm and bombs were dropped over the area to break the enemy's hold. Flames roared through the jungle. The earth shook with explosions. And still, there was no signal from Jerry's team. As soon as the smoke cleared, search and rescue teams were sent in. They combed the area, searching for survivors, bodies, gear, anything, but they found nothing. No blood trails, no bullet casings, no equipment, no bodies. It was as if the entire team had vanished into thin air. When the search teams came back empty-handed, the military faced a haunting truth. Master Sergeant Jerry Mad Dog Shriver and his team were gone. No bodies, no wreckage, no clue if they had escaped, been killed, or captured. The jungle had swallowed them whole, leaving behind only silence and questions. The U.S. Army officially marked Jerry as missing in action, but no one really knew what happened in those final hours. Some believed Jerry died in the firefight, possibly shielding his men. Others believed he was wounded and taken prisoner, hauled deep into the shadows of Laos or Cambodia. Then the rumors began. Over the years, multiple American prisoners of war who managed to escape or were later released claimed to have seen a mysterious, pale American in secret jungle camps. He was described as gaunt, with long hair and a beard, chained, silent and beaten down, but alive. Some said he was kept in total isolation. Others claimed the guards feared him, speaking of him in hushed tones. Nothing was ever confirmed. The military investigated, followed leads, interviewed former prisoners, but there was never any concrete proof. No photos, no physical evidence. Just whispers of a man too tough to kill and too valuable to release. In 1974, 5 years after the mission, the U.S. government officially declared Jerry Michael Shriver dead. It was a bureaucratic end to a story that still felt painfully unfinished. His body was never recovered, and his grave remains empty, but for those who served with him, for the Montagnards who called him brother, and for the men whose lives he saved, Jerry didn't need a tombstone to be remembered. During his time in Vietnam, Jerry Shriver completed over 100 combat missions, some of the most dangerous the U.S. military had ever launched. He earned 3 Silver Stars, a Bronze Star with V device, and a Purple Heart. But none of those medals captured who he really was. He didn't write books, he didn't give speeches, he didn't come home to parades. His legacy was written. In the dirt of the jungle, in the silence of enemy camps he destroyed, in the lives of men who would never forget what he did for them. To the enemy, he was the phantom they couldn't kill. To his brothers in arms, he was the man who never flinched. To history, Master Sergeant Jerry Mad Dog Shriver is still out there, somewhere between myth and memory. The scariest man of the Vietnam War didn't just fight like a ghost. He became one.